Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Terry Luker, and I'm really excited to be with you this afternoon on Deal Talk. We're here with the quarterback in the NFL that was one of my favorite players while I was, a young man. I won't say growing up because I was already, grown when he was playing ball. But man, a guy that, boy, Joe, I just loved watching you play football. But Mr. Joe Theismann is here with us today. He is going to be our keynote speaker for the Commercial Loan Brokers Association Convention and Expo that's coming up October 27th, 28th, and 29th in Orlando, Florida. And Joe, really, thank you so much for being with us today. We greatly appreciate you being here.
You're welcome, Terry. I certainly appreciate the opportunity. It isn't often we get a chance to do things now where you get a chance to sort of take a stroll down memory lane, which are, I think, some of the things we'll be talking about. And I always sort of reflect back on how lucky I was and am as an individual to have experienced so many things that I have, to have met so many wonderful people, and more importantly, to have learned from so many different people. My favorite saying is real simple. The day you stop learning is the day you stop living. And so, I tell people, hey, you need to know more today than you knew yesterday. You need to know more tomorrow than you know today. And it's like just going up a ladder, each rung at a time. You just take your time and learn along the way.
Well, you're stealing a little bit of my thunder there now. So one of the things I wanted to ask you first is, many people know you as the quarterback of the Washington Redskins and a Super Bowl champion, an MVP, all of those things. But when you introduce yourself today, how do you describe who Joe Theismann is today?
It's funny. I don't, Terry. I don't try and describe myself. Matter of fact, so often, like, for example, I was playing golf today. Okay. And I met 4 people at the end and I introduced myself as Joe. Sometimes people recognize me.
Yes.
Sometimes people don't. But I just introduce myself as Joe. And then I get to know them. It's, one of the hardest things for someone, I guess, in my position is people know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're with a group of people, you really don't know them. So I really try, and it isn't even going out of my way, but I really make an effort to try and find out more about their lives, their families, things they enjoy. Mine's an open book. Not that Wikipedia is accurate all the time, but
that's true. All right. Well, that's
basically people know who we are.
Yeah, that's true. Well, let's go back to the beginning if we can for just a minute. Notre Dame, All-American Heisman Trophy runner-up. What did that chapter in your life teach you about competition and pressure at that young age?
Well, actually, it really went back to high school, even before that, when I had a chance to play at high school. As a matter of fact, my wide receiver in high school was a pretty decent guy called Drew Pearson. Drew was a part of our team, and it was a great experience for me growing up. I mean, my mom wouldn't let me play football for 2 years. She was afraid I was going to get hurt. And finally, one of my buddies came to the house dressed in a uniform with his mother to politic for my mother to allow me to play football.
Wow.
And so that's really how it all started for me at the age of 12. And then I was always skinny. Playing Pop Warner football, you had to be under 115 pounds and you had to be this, certain weight and all those kinds of things. And so I always was a skinny little kid. And then when I decided to go to the University of Notre Dame, there was a Newark, New Jersey newspaper that had a headline that said, Theismann will get killed at Notre Dame. Now, I've always been a person, if you want me to do something, tell me I can't.
Exactly.
Call it what you want, pride, spite. I don't care how you describe it, but I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to work hard to be able to do that. And I entered college at the University of Notre Dame at 152 pounds, 5'10", 152 pounds, one of 13 quarterbacks. And really, it was. We're always looking for a competitive edge in our life, Terry. And no matter what we do, we want a competitive edge. For me, I decided to go to the university 1 week early so that I could spend time with the coaches, learn where to stand in the huddle, learn the plays. Because, if you're in a group, always somebody's going to be the first one to do something. And I wanted to be the first one. Now, if I gave myself a chance to be the first one in line, Then it was a question of, did I have the ability to be able to be the guy? And it turned out that I was the first one in line. I was one of 13 quarterbacks
Wow.
my freshman year at the University of Notre Dame. So, they made everybody else something else: defensive backs, wide receivers, tight ends. For me, I was so skinny and little, they could do nothing with me except play quarterback. So being skinny and little was an advantage to me. Matter of fact, interesting footnote on that is I played 15 years of professional football, never weighed more than 185 pounds, and just barely made it to 6 feet. I mean, I had this great tiny little waist, but I was just my metabolism ran real high. But to answer your question, it was all a question of the opportunity to be able to get there early and create a competitive edge for myself, and then to work very hard. I mean, I went out on 2 dates my freshman and sophomore year at the University of Notre Dame. I focused on my grades because I wasn't a good student, and I knew I wanted to stay, and I also focused on my football. And those were the things that, I did at the university. I studied and I played football. And, my junior, senior year, I tried to make up for the things I didn't do my sophomore, freshman year. But that really set the tone for me going forward. It was a work ethic. It was the work ethic that made the difference.
Well, and you kind of, let's talk about another decision you made earlier in your career that kind of made you go against the trends, of the day. When you're coming out of Notre Dame, you're drafted by the Miami Dolphins in the NFL. You were also, and a lot of people may not know this, but you were drafted by the Minnesota Twins for Major League Baseball. But you chose a different path. You started, in the Canadian Football League with the Toronto Argonauts. Yeah. And what went into that decision? What made you say, yeah, I'm not doing that, I'm going to do this?
Well, first of all, baseball has always been a passion of mine. I mean, I do a lot of motivational speaking. I travel around the country. Used to travel around the world, but I've limited now to North America, I guess you could say. And from my perspective, it was a chance to be able to love baseball, which I started doing before I ever started doing football. But then the road through baseball to the majors is AA, single A, triple A. I mean, it's a process. It's buses and everything else. In professional football, you're either in or you're out. You're either there or you're not going to be there. And I've seen guys try and do both. I saw guys try and go from baseball to football, but you lose that edge. At the level of professional ball, the competitive edge is so slight. And the ability, the difference in the talent level is so slight that you have to really focus on it. But when it came to me choosing to go to Canada, I had negotiated my own contract with the Miami Dolphins. I did not have an agent. First mistake I made was I thought I knew what I was doing. Hey, I was a Notre Dame guy, got a Notre Dame degree. I can do this. So I fly down to Miami. I meet with Joe Robbie, who was the owner. Joe Thomas was the GM. He was having heart surgery. So I meet with the owner. I sit down with Mr. Robbie, and he says to me, "What do you want?" And you're going to love these numbers, especially in today's perspective. I said, I want $35,000, $45,000, and $55,000. I want a $35,000 signing bonus. Well, interestingly enough, he said to me, and I was a third round. I was picked in the fourth round, but I was their third pick. He said, "Joe, that kind of money is reserved for second round picks, but you got it." So they drafted the contract, and to make a long story short, there was a clause in the contract that had me paying back money, which I didn't like. So I called the Toronto Argonauts and I said, "What's your deal?" And they said 50 US dollars. But you have to fly up here right now and sign it. I flew to Toronto, signed the contract, got back to South Bend. I get a call from Ara Parsigian, my coach, who was my counselor, whom I never counseled. And so he said, "What in heaven's name have you done?" I said, "I signed with the Toronto Argonauts." He said, "I know. I just got off the phone with Shula. It's 6 a.m. And he said, he's on a plane up here right now. Don came up and read me the riot act. You have a moral obligation to be in Miami Dolphins, all that kind of stuff. Well, I spent 3 wonderful years in Toronto. I would not have left, except that the owner at that time, John Bassett Sr., decided he didn't want to pay the kind of money that, they were paying previous. So I wound up, what happened was George Allen traded a number 1 pick to the Miami Dolphins for my rights. So truthfully, even though I was drafted in the 4th round, I became a number 1 pick, Terry. So I was a number 1 pick in the NFL.
Now
And, and then I
that's
spent
going around.
and
Yeah.
then I spent spent 12 years in Washington. Started my career at Notre Dame as a punt returner. I
Yeah.
returned punts in the Canadian Football League. And I started my career with the Washington Redskins for the first 2 years as a punt returner as well. So,
So
I went from punt returner to quarterback.
in all levels, right?
Yeah,
That's
all different
amazing.
levels. Did it in high
So
school too.
yeah. So what do you think your time in the CFL, what did it teach you to help shape the success that you had, in the NFL?
It was the value of being able to play the game. Uh, we talk about guys standing on the sidelines and learning. But I tell people all the time, if you stand on the sidelines and you watch somebody else play
Mm,
football,
yeah.
it's like reading a book on tennis and think you're going to go out and play Sinner or Rafael Nadal or any of those guys. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to happen. You have to go through the process. You have to understand down and distance. You have to play in bad weather. You have to throw the ball in bad weather. You don't do that standing on the sidelines.
No.
So what the Canadian League did for me, it gave me a chance to play the game of football, to learn how to play the game of football and the intricacies that go with it. And that was the value of being up there. I love the city of Toronto. I love the people of Toronto. Heck, we went to the Grey Cup up there my second year. And
Wow.
we were playing for a championship up there my second year in the league.
Wow.
But I had my sights set on coming home
Yeah.
to the U.S.
So reading through some things about you, I found an interesting fact, and you just told us that you barely got to 6 feet, and the most you ever weighed in the NFL was 185 pounds.
Yep.
So that makes this next statement and question for you just amazing to me, is that you played 163 consecutive games over a 12-year period for Washington.
Yeah.
You hold the franchise record for passing, leading the team to a Super Bowl victory, obviously. Looking back, I mean, I don't understand how you did that at 6 feet, 185 pounds over a 12-year period. But looking back, what are you most proud of from your playing days?
Well, it's funny, Ted. There was a lot of bending of my body, but not a lot of breaking until the end, I guess you could say.
Right. Yeah.
The thing I'm most proud of the time that I spent in Washington was that I showed up for work every day. I had a chance to play in 163 consecutive games. And the key to anything is it's like schooling, it's education for kids. You don't have to be a good student, but if you go there every day, you're going to learn.
Right.
If you're a professional athlete or a collegiate athlete and you show up, you play 2 games, you're hurt for 3, you come back for 3, you're hurt. You just start learning at a rate you need to learn. And being able to show up every day for work, being able to play as much as I did was a constant learning process. And I just tried to get better and better and better. But the only way you do that in our profession is to be on the field.
Right.
There's a young man in Indianapolis by the name of Anthony Richardson. He's a very talented athlete, but he has to learn how to play the quarterback position. Unfortunately, he's in his 3rd year and he was hurt again.
Yeah.
And you're just, because people pass you by. Plus, the other thing you have to realize is back in the 70s and 80s when there wasn't free agency, if I didn't play and somebody else got on the practice field and the coach liked what they saw, I'd lose my job.
Right. Right.
So the motivation was, don't give the other guy a chance. I played with, the things I've had, 7 broken noses, multiple concussions, broken collarbones, dislocated elbows, broken leg twice, messed up knee, broken right hand twice.
Wow. Yeah.
I had little things I call them little things. I had little things like that happen to me through the course of my career, but there's no way I would let anybody else get on the field because I didn't want the coach to know that there was someone behind me that might have been able to play the position.
Right.
So it was self-preservation to a degree, but also a love of the game.
And also you're the best player at that position for your team. And that, looking in, you gave the team the best chance to win, and as a leader on your team. And that leads me to the next thing is that, obviously as the quarterback, you're a leader on that team. Okay. And your voice is going to be heard. Well, how did you approach motivating, and uniting a team of such different personalities and different backgrounds. I mean, the middle linebacker's got a different mentality than the quarterback does.
Sure. Yeah, but Terry, the one thing that every player has is they have respect for that individual in a particular position. I respect defensive linemen for what they do. I respect linebackers. I respect safeties. I respect wide recievers. The quarterback position is the single most dependent position on a field. Think about it.
Yeah.
If the offensive line doesn't block, you're not going to stand up. If the receivers don't catch, you get no completions. If running backs don't gain yards, you're stuck with long yardage situations. If defenses don't stop people, heck, ask the Buffalo Bills what happens when you miss a kick.
Yeah.
I mean, most the games today in the NFL, I think like 19-20% of the games are decided by 3 points or less.
Right.
So it's the value of that. But to me, if they see you working hard, if they see you in early, they see you out late, if you communicate with them, these are all the essence, I think, of success in any business. The ability to communicate. People respect those people that want to put the time in to be good at what they do. Some people put a lot of time in and they're just not that good. Well, that doesn't take away from the fact that by putting that time in, they're going to become better, maybe at something else. So for me, it was all a question of earning the respect of the coaches and people I played with and around.
Yeah. So 1983, think back about that year. That's got to be a special year for you because you won the NFL MVP. So how did that season feel different for you, both personally and as a team?
I learned a great lesson in that year, Terry. We won the championship in '82. And really, Coach Gibbs came in '81. All of a sudden, we went through a strike. We went through 7, I think, weeks of a strike, and we only played, a limited amount of games. But in '83, we sort of found our way. And I remember the early part of that season. And as a quarterback, you want to throw touchdown passes. That's what you do, okay?
Right.
But we kept getting down around the goal line because I had such a great running back in John Riggins, a terrific offensive line. We get down around the goal line, and it's like, okay, let's go 60 chip. Okay, give the ball to John, touchdown. Whoopie-doo. What's that doing for me, okay?
Yeah.
So anyway, I finally, after the third game, John had scored I had 1 touchdown pass. John had scored 5 touchdowns. I finally decided that it didn't matter who scored. The fact of the matter is we won. I gave up wanting to be the guy, the man. And I said, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to help this football team win football games. Lo and behold, at the end of the year, I wind up being voted the MVP of the National Football League.
Yeah.
And you're considered the best player in the league in that period of time. And a lot of it came from the fact that I didn't want to be the star. I wanted to be the guy supporting the other guys, and it just came my way. And I try to analogize things out of the world of sports into other businesses and into lives. If you chase something hard enough, it's always going to be out of your grasp.
Yeah.
If you let it come to you, you're probably going to get it a lot quicker.
That's great advice.
That's in essence really the way it was for me in that '83 season. But it was magical. I mean, it was, I would throw a pass. I mean, I could knock a fly off an elephant's butt. That's the way I felt, man. The accuracy was just there. I mean, I could do it.
Yeah, that's outstanding. So let's move a little bit into something that's a little bit more of adversity and resiliency. Okay. Because your career ended, like you said, you bent, but you didn't break. Your career ended very suddenly in 1985, and many of us saw it, and it's unfortunately it's one of the most infamous injuries in football. How did you process that moment, and what really helped you move forward from that? Because you didn't have time to think about your career ending; it ended.
Yeah, it did. It's that night changed my life. See, prior to that evening, I was Joe Theismann, quarterback of the Washington Redskins. Joe Theismann, MVP. Joe Theismann, Man of the Year. Joe Theismann, Pro Bowler. Joe Theismann, Super Bowl champion. 1984 as the 4th highest paid player in the National Football League, and you're going to love this number, at $1 million a year.
Yeah.
Warren Moon was 1 at 1.4. But the problem with all that is I started believing I was more important than anything. I thought that I was special. It was, you turn on a radio, turn on a TV, pick up a newspaper, Theismann leads Redskins. Heck, if you'd asked me, I'd have told you I was special. Not proud of that, but that's what I became with all those accolades.
Right.
That night became a very humbling experience for me because everything that I thought was important was now gone. I didn't think my career was over. I wanted to come back. I tried to come back. April of that year, I went out and worked out for, our team. And, I wound up being released. But I'd had the opportunity. We won Super Bowl 17, played in Super Bowl 18. I was given the opportunity by Roone Arledge for Super Bowl 19 to broadcast the game with Don Meredith and Frank Gifford. I replaced O.J. Simpson in the booth.
Right.
That wet my whistle for broadcasting. So all of a sudden, there was the exit strategy. But I tell athletes all the time, don't think of the exit strategy because, like I say, the margin of competition is so tight that once you allow thinking about leaving the game into your head, you're basically done. You may as well leave. Because if it creeps in, it's going to grow and go. And I diversified as a player. I called football the axle of my wheel. So that's where it was right there, the axle. And then one spoke was acting. Another spoke was my restaurants. Another spoke was motivational speeches. Another spoke was investments. So as much as I loved football and worked at it, I knew that, at the age of 35, I wasn't going to do it forever. And that I wanted options to be able to pursue after I was finished.
Yeah. So thinking about that, what advice would you give people, whether athletes or business professionals, about handling sudden life-changing, setbacks?
I think it's all a question of one thing: mental toughness. People have asked me, what's the most important thing anyone can possess in life? It's mental toughness, because you are going to go through difficult times. But are you going to succumb to them? Are you going to walk around going, woe is me, oh, look at my situation? Yeah. Or are you going to do something about it? I run pretty hot and high. I'm a upbeat kind of guy. I love that. People say, do you ever have a down day? Heck yeah. I have peaks and valleys in my life. I just choose not to stay in the valley.
Right.
You can wallow around in the valley as long as you want. Doesn't matter. Like, I wrote a book called How to Be a Champion Every Day. The essence of the book is the relationship between the world of sports, the world of business, and our own lives. And so much of what I've learned comes out of the world of sports. And then it's helped me tremendously in dealing with situations in business. So if there is an occurrence in your life that is perceived as somewhat negative, it's a learning experience, number one. And if you take it and look at it that way, then it really isn't a negative. It's something that you learn from and will help you going forward. It goes back to what we were talking about. It's that ladder where you take it one rung at a time. And part of it is the pitfalls and downfalls that we deal with.
Yeah. I think too many people spend their lives being a victim, instead of, and listen, people get hurt. I'm not trying to say or play light on that, but at some point in time, like you've done, you got to pick yourself up and you got to go.
Well, it's a mental approach. There's a tremendous friend of mine, a guy by the name of Joey Bozick. Joey was a sergeant MP in the Army in the first Iraq War. Joe is out on patrol with two other guys in a Humvee. Got a driver, he's in the passenger seat, guy in the back seat. They're driving along, an IED goes off under their Jeep, under their Humvee.
Yeah.
Joey winds up being a triple amputee, loses his left arm below the elbow, both of his legs below the knees. I'm playing golf with him at Camp Lejeune. About the fourth hole, I said, Joey, what happened? He explained to me. And then he said something to me, Terry, that just made me so proud to be an American, made me so proud of our military, and really spoke to what leadership is all about. He says, Joe, I can live with my position in my life because the men that I was responsible for were okay.
Wow.
It brings up that word responsibility. As a leader, you have responsibility to everybody that you lead. And leadership is not about the leader, it's about the people you lead.
Absolutely.
Mike Tomlin, the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who hasn't had a losing season in Pittsburgh for 17 years?
17 years. Yeah.
I look at that situation and I asked Mike one day, what's the key to leadership? He says, I want to give the players and our office and everybody, I want to give them all the tools that they need to be successful.
Yeah.
And so, but Joey's situation, Joey's a ranked wrestler in the Dallas area.
Wow.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just, people say, oh, look at your situation. He says, what situation?
Yeah.
In that, so you ask, what's the answer is, what some people perceive, in my case, as a tragedy when I was hurt, was really a blessing for me.
Right. Yeah. It's hard at the time to look at it like that, but if we do, I think it helps us to get better. So
Right.
the next phase of your life as we know it, outside looking in, was the broadcasting, and then, the business ventures that you did. And after football, you spent, I think 2 decades as an NFL analyst for ESPN and the NFL Network.
Right.
What did you enjoy most about being on that side of the game?
Not getting hit, Terry. I could be around the game. I could study. I could be at the stadium, but by golly, I did not get hit.
Those bruises weren't bad the next morning.
No,
right?
I felt really good. My arm was a little sore from doing a little writing, but other than that, I was fine.
Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed being around the game. See, I had a chance to play in one franchise. I played for Washington. Okay, I played for the Redskins for 12 years. Played 3 in Toronto, and of course the 12 in Washington. So I only really knew one system. I learned from Coach Allen, from Coach Pardee, who gave me a chance to play. Coach Allen traded for me. Coach Pardee gave me a chance to play, and Coach gave me an opportunity to be in a system that flourished. So I learned from each one of them going forward. But the neat thing is I had a chance to have 31 other franchises to learn from, to talk to the owners, to talk to the coaches, to talk to the players, the medical staff, the equipment people, the PR people. I got a chance to learn so much more about the game of football. So really what broadcasting was for me, I called it the library of football. I had the keys to the library. I had the keys to all these different things that people had knowledge about that I didn't. And like I said, hey, I just wanted to keep on learning about football. And I study it today. I study the draft. I study the college. We get excited. College is coming up. Everybody's going bonkers.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's a great chance to learn. And it's an evolving game. The game is a little different today than it was when I played. And the players are a little different than when I played.
Yeah. So how did your approach as a broadcaster, compare to the approach that you had as a quarterback?
Study.
Okay.
Basically study. I spent 60 hours a week preparing for a game. Whether it's meeting with coaches, whether it's studying film. I used to prepare a spotting board where it would have all the players on it, their names, their numbers, their heights, where they were drafted, where they went to school. And then by meeting with the players, I would make little notes on it. And I used to have it in front of me for the telecast. Now, a lot of times, if the game was a good game, you wouldn't need the notes. So you could say I over-prepared, but I never feel like you can be over-prepared for anything. You can be under-prepared, but you can never be over-prepared.
Yeah. There's a lesson there that I wish some of our brokers, in our association would learn too. And it's, when I'm going into a meeting, say it's a bank that I'm trying to get to come aboard to do business with us, or, it's a client, I want to learn something about them.
Sure.
So I go and research those. So it's the same type of preparation and study that you're doing. And it kind of leads me to the next thought that we have here is, you built a successful career as a businessman and an entrepreneur, because at 35, your football career ended. So you had to have something to do, right?
Right.
So what lessons from football translate, and I think there's probably a lot, but what lessons from football translated best into the business?
I'm going to cover them in the presentation that I do.
Oh, great.
I'll give you sort of thumbnail a little bit. First of all, you have to have goals. Everybody has goals. Well, you have to write them down.
Right.
Sports, we write them down. Business, we write them down. But yet in our own lives, studies prove over 90% of the people don't take the time to write down what they want. And then what price do you want to pay to be special? I guarantee you there isn't one person in that room that I'm going to talk to that I believe is average. I believe everyone in there is special.
Right.
There's a special trait to them. So, goals are important. The attitudes you take to something. Attitudes precede everything we do in our life.
Yep.
Working, we use that term client services or customer service. It's just people relationships. That's all
Yep.
it is.
That's it.
And being part of the team. If you're a broker, you're part of a team. You have an office, you have a group of people, you have a support staff. So how do you fit in the team? What are the roles of the team members? And then how do you get motivated to do things in your life? Like I say, I run hot. My feet hit the floor in the morning. I drive my wife nuts. I'm ready. I don't know, whatever the day's got for me, just bring it on.
Yeah.
Let's go see what's out there. So, but those are the basic principles that I follow and I try and talk to people about.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to the presentation. I want to transition just a second and talk about some of the things that you did that I think are very, outstanding as far as the character and community, part of your life. And that is that you were named the NFL Man of the Year for your community service in 1982. Why has giving back been such a consistent part of your life?
Well, I think a lot of it goes with the fact that I thought at one point in my life that I needed to be served. I talked about, all the headlines and everything. And then after I was hurt and so many people were so nice and it was an epiphany, I guess you could say. I learned that, we're not put on this earth at all. The good Lord did not put us here to be served. He gives us an opportunity to serve others.
Yeah.
And, if you're a person of note, if you're a celebrity, whatever that term means, if you're a person that is recognized, you have a certain power, you have a certain ability to be able to do special things for other people. Some of it is raise finances. I did it for the Children's Hospital National Medical Center in Washington, D.C. I also, if you go to my website, joetheismann.com, you'll see a list of things there. Trading cards, jerseys, helmets, and there's a dollar amount that is attached of which I'm happy to sign. But I ask for a donation to St. Jude of that amount.
Wow.
So that I wish I'd done it when I was playing. I didn't start this until, quite a few years after I was playing. So that way, and all the money, all the money goes to St. Jude. Every penny goes, what can I do to make their lives easier? And I live in Memphis as well. And I go to St. Jude and I see the families and I see the staff and I see the doctors and I see the researchers and I see the kids and I see the smiles on their face. You talk about toughness. You talk about people that, you talk about little ones that are dealing with incredible adversity in their life and they're still smiling. Yeah. I think if you really want a lesson in your life, take a walk through a children's hospital and look at those faces and look at the battles that they're fighting. And you think your life is tough?
Yeah.
Time to reevaluate.
Yeah. That's strong message there. In 2013, you received the Walter Camp Distinguished American Award. What did that honor mean to you personally?
Anytime you receive an award, it's a representation of the people that are in your life. Being an MVP, I was chosen as the MVP, but to me, that's a representation of the men that I played football with and for, and the entire organization. It's the same thing with, giving the Distinguished American Award or Distinguished Citizen Award. I just want to try and do things to help people. And so other people recognized that the things that I was doing and were kind enough to present me with the award. But, I don't think you ever want to go into anything seeking adulation or awards. Just do it. Just do good stuff. Man, if you do something good in the course of a day, when you put your head on a pillow at night, you're going to sleep good.
Yeah.
Really,
you certainly do sleep better that way. You're someone who certainly had to adapt to unforeseen change quickly, in your life. What's your personal strategy now when something unexpected happens?
It's the same thing as always. Just embrace it, look at it, analyze it, figure out why it happened, and figure out how you can move past it if you need to. Seek help if you need to. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I mean, it's like questions. I'm a very inquisitive individual. My two favorite words are opportunity and why. And the thing is so many people will say, well, Joe, I have a stupid question. The only stupid question that exists is the one that doesn't get asked.
Right.
And that's not a sign of ignorance. That's a sign of willingness to be able to learn more. I think
Right.
that's a compliment, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So it's just, I just try and take the same approach. I'm not going to stay in the valley.
Yeah. You said earlier that the game, has changed, quite a bit. And obviously we know that it has. I mean, certainly, the monetary, values in the game have certainly changed. I mean, most quarterbacks ain't playing for $1 million, are they? Today, and you
A
were the four
week,
guys.
a
Yeah,
week,
yeah,
basically a
exactly.
week. Yeah.
So, but looking at today's NFL, what stands out, I think, the most to you about the game, and specifically the quarterback position and how it's evolved?
I think how many great athletes there are at the quarterback position, how many different styles there are. I'm always curious how an offensive coordinator wants to incorporate the talent of the quarterback.
Yeah.
Some offensive coordinators have killed quarterbacks' careers because they try and force square pegs into round holes. Take
Right.
what the person has and build on it. Don't have your ego so big that you think that you can't adapt and adjust to a young person's abilities. I think that's adaptability is one of the keys. We learned
Yeah.
that. We learned that during the pandemic.
Yeah.
The different improvisation is important. Innovation is important. I think one of the things I see the way they protect quarterbacks today. A quarterback gets pushed to the ground, it's a 15-yard penalty. No, it's not. They got their
No.
pants dirty. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
So I think to me, there are certain rules. I think I would love to see every play challenged. You only get 2 challenges, but
Yeah.
every play should be challenged. They have a menu now. This can be challenged. That can't be challenged.
Right.
Let
Right.
everyone be challenged. You only have 2,
Yeah.
and use it judiciously. But I love the game. It's wide open. The thing that I see though, Terry, is that we had great athletes. People come up to me and say, the athletes of today were better than the athletes when you played. I say, well, okay, let's look at this for a second. Then if that's the case, why are the guys that I played with in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
A lot of these guys today, they'll wind up in the Hall, some of them. But I think we have a larger group of tremendous athletes in the game today than we had before. You got to remember, when I came into the league back in the early 70s, our entire weight room was a universal gym. And if anybody's watching this podcast and doesn't know what a universal gym is, Google it, okay?
Yeah.
It's not a lot of weights. Our room was about a 12 by 12 room. Today, a weight room is 15,000 square feet. They
Right.
have every possible piece of machinery in there to try and help somebody get better and stronger. Guys have dietitians. Our guys were cheeseburgers, French fries, and a beer. That's basically what we do. Tell them we'll take that call later.
Yeah. I think as I look and I see, I apologize for that.
I love it.
As I see the games, I go back and I'll look at some of the games that some of you greats played in, and man, some of the hits you quarterbacks took.
Oh yeah.
Today, those guys, I mean, they would be throwing those players that hit them out of the game and suspending them for 2 or 3 games, and it was a normal play when you were playing.
Yeah, it's really funny. I mean, in fact, people compliment me on my smile. Cosmetic dentistry is a wonderful thing. I got my teeth knocked out against the Giants.
Yeah.
I mean, I wore a single bar face mask. Matter of fact, I was the last non-kicker to wear a single bar in the NFL.
Yeah.
It just helped me visually hand off better, and I could see things better. And Billy Kilmer and Sonny Jerkins, whom I played with, both had single bars, so I basically felt peer pressure and obligated to wear one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree. I do agree with you. I think the hits are unbelievable, and we're doing everything we can in the league to try and make it a safer game. But it's a contact sport.
It is.
I mean, I don't want you. You can only legislate so much to take the hitting out of it.
Right.
I tell people all the time. A lot of people go to a hockey game just to see the fight.
Right.
You know what hockey would be if there weren't fights? It would be the ice capades.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of guys,
pretty boring.
Now skating around. That's all.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you this. I know you probably get asked it a lot, and then we'll finish up here. But what legacy do you hope that people remember most about Joe Theismann on or off the field?
You know, I've been asked that before about a legacy. Whatever I did, whatever I was, is documented, so
Yeah.
that will be part of it. But I want to be known as a guy who cared about people, a guy who worked real hard, and a guy who appreciated all of the things that the good Lord gave him.
Mm, wow. Outstanding. Good stuff. So, want to wrap it up here with you. I certainly appreciate your time today, and
Oh, this has
so
been
looking,
fun. I've
yeah, I'm
enjoyed
so
it.
looking forward to
Thank you.
meeting you in person down in Orlando, and I'm looking forward to your keynote, address to our group. I know it's going to be exciting for all of us, to do. But if you could give one piece of advice to someone that's listening today, whether they're an athlete, an entrepreneur, or just working through life's challenges, what would that one piece of advice be?
Well, it starts. Remember, I came out of college at 5 feet 10 and 152 pounds. And people told me I couldn't do things. They told me I wasn't big enough to play the game of football. They told me I was too small. They told me my arm wasn't strong enough. And my advice to anybody is don't let anybody tell you that you can't be everything that you want to be. You make that the choice. You make that
Yeah.
decision. You decide on your future. Don't let anybody tell you you're too big, you're too small, you're this, you're that. Don't let somebody else determine your future. You make your mind up and then you go with it. You go after it with everything you have.
That is such great advice. It's such great advice. Lastly, where can people connect with you to learn more about the work that you're doing?
Well, my website is joetheismann.com. You
Okay.
can log on. Like I say, there I have a list of items that I sign and ask for donations to St. Jude's Children's Research Center.
Right.
And there's others. As a matter of fact, we're just going to release within the next week. We're going to release sort of a new website that's got a little bit of a different look to it. It's got some of the things that have happened in my life. I had a street named after me back in my hometown. Now there's Drew Pearson Street and Joe Theismann Way, and we've had be honored that way by your hometown. It was a small town, but it was a great town. And
Yeah.
just some of the things that I managed to talk about as we have talked here today
Yeah.
about the things that are important in my life. And then when you come to the conference, you'll find out about my record-setting punt. You'll find out about my relationship with Lawrence Taylor. I play
Mm.
golf with Lawrence, and I won't let him stand where I can't see him, Terry. I had that happen once in my life, and I'm not going to let it happen again. I really look forward to seeing everybody in Orlando. And, to me, there has to be value of what you share with people, but we
Mhm.
also have to have fun.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I want to again thank you so much for being with us today. Can't wait to have you down in Orlando with our group. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been Joe Theismann with us today on Deal Talk, talking about the Commercial Loan Brokers Association, the convention and expo coming up in just less than 60 days now, October 27th, 28th, and 29th in Orlando. If you haven't registered, you need to go to CLBAssociation.com and get registered today so you can hear the keynote speech from Joe Theismann and get to meet him while we're down there. So, Joe, thank you again so much for being with us today.
Terry, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.